How's it going, everybody? So in this video I want to talk a little bit about the intervention trials backing up polyphenols. I had an interesting discussion with some of my favorite evidence-based experts. They happen to be medical doctors. They make some content about nutrition. I'm not going to say their names, but basically I ask them how they can be so sure that polyphenols and fiber are responsible for the improvements in health benefits that we see in cohort studies and large population studies on showing basically, the people who eat the most fruit and vegetables tend to have the lowest risk of certain diseases. And, I asked them, well, how do you know that's fiber? How do you know that's polyphenols? And they said, well, we have intervention studies that back it up. So I looked for the intervention studies, and I actually found and I couldn't find a lot on my own that showed a significant magnitude of effect, okay? Let alone a clinically significant improvement in any kind of health measure at all from intervention trials. So I actually happened to stumble upon a podcast by Sigma Nutrition on Spotify. I recommend you all look it up and listen to it for yourself, and also look up the studies that they reference. And these people happen to be friends of the people that I was chatting with on Instagram. And it's funny because the doctors I was chatting with on Instagram, they're medical doctors, they seemed a bit annoyed by my questioning their polyphenol fascination, or their plant food fascination. And I'm not even a carnivore zealot, but they did say it's a carnivore trope. But basically, over 86% of Americans are clinically obese, and we're relying on these large population studies on free living Americans to, give us guidance on what to eat and what not to eat. I think that's just crazy. So 86% of Americans are clinically obese. These cohort studies, they show the people who eat the least fruit and vegetables per day compared to the people who eat the most fruit and vegetables. The people who eat the most fruit and vegetables consistently have better health outcomes. The people who eat the lowest amount of fruit and vegetables in these studies, where do you think that they lie on the 86% of clinically obese Americans compared to the 14% of non-obese Americans? Chances are what these plant food studies are showing is people who are choosing, that these cohort studies, these people are willingly eating the way they are, and they're being studied by researchers using questionnaires that they mail to them. People who eat the most fruit and vegetable, we're talking 6 to 12 servings a day, okay? That's about maybe, 3 to 6 cups, depending on the type of fruit and vegetable. Yeah, maybe not, that's not a lot, but if you think about people, these are people who are willingly eating multiple cups of fruit and vegetables a day. Do you really think that those people that are eating the most fruit and vegetables, they're buying fruit and vegetables, they're going out of their way to get that much fruit and vegetables? Do you really think that, those people are probably living the healthiest of healthy lifestyles. Anyway, so I looked for these intervention trials. I found the Sigma Nutrition podcast. I spent 3.5, maybe 4 hours listening to the polyphenol podcasts that they have. They have 2 or 3 of them up. One on cognition and one on cardiovascular risk factors. So the one on cognition was just, oh my God. So basically, when they got talking about intervention trials, they were talking about studies on blueberry extract, okay? So first of all, let me say polyphenols. There are some polyphenols that definitely have a significant physiological benefit that you could feel within hours of taking it. Things like gynostemma, reishi mushroom, even things like ginseng. I mean, I think caffeine, I know it's an alkaloid. I guess that's a polyphenol, right? So caffeine has a pretty significant impact because you can feel it. Epicatechin gallate from green tea. So there's a lot of well-documented polyphenols that are probably more significant than others. But these intervention trials that people use to back up things like glucoraphanin from like broccoli sprouts. Yeah, broccoli sprouts, guys. Rhonda Patrick and her broccoli sprouts. But these intervention trials backing up things like freaking broccoli sprouts, freaking blueberries and whatnot, not very compelling. So yeah, literally like 30 minutes of Sigma nutrition, just salivating at the mouth over intervention trials on blueberry polyphenols that don't even show a high magnitude of effect or a clinically significant improvement in any health outcome. It's crazy. And they're like, yeah, these polyphenols, guys, are magical. Okay, so check this out. The first study they were talking about, it was a study, an intervention trial, I think it was like 8 weeks, done on elementary school students, where they gave the placebo group a sugar-sweetened placebo, and they gave the they gave the intervention group, a highly concentrated blueberry polyphenol enriched juice. It's like a polyphenol extract concentrate, basically. And they basically measured their cognition and stuff using 3 different tests. Okay, so at the end of the multiple, like the 2 or 3 month trial, they showed the polyphenol group had like a 3.5% increase in cognition on one test compared to the placebo. So a 3.5% improvement compared to placebo on one of the cognition tests. On the other 2 cognition tests, they found 0 statistically significant improvement. So that means that it wasn't even statistically significant. Now, remember, statistical significance is really not that significant in the real world. Okay, statistically significant just means it's, significant in the context of the study, where you can actually pick up a pretty significant difference compared to the placebo group, right? In between the placebo and the intervention. Clinical significance means how much effect it's actually going to have if you actually try the intervention in the real world. So there's no there's no statistical significance in improvements in 2 of the interventions out of the 3. But one of these interventions, they showed like a 3.5% improvement in cognition from the blueberry extract compared to the placebo. And Sigma Nutrition was like, yeah, see, clearly it's doing something. And then they explained the low magnitude of effect by the fact that the placebo probably had more sugar than the intervention. Like, yeah, sugar has a cognitive enhancing effect. It might have been the sugar. So the placebo fucked up the study because it had too much sugar. So anyway, they then went on to talk about 2 more studies on blueberry polyphenols. And it was not that significant. It was, again, anywhere from a 2% to a 5% improvement in cognition. Not really a whole lot of significance. I think they mentioned like one that showed like a 15% improvement, but I don't actually remember exactly. I think I might be mistaken. So definitely watch that podcast, Sigma Nutrition on Spotify, and then look for their polyphenol and cognition test. I actually didn't sleep at all last night, so if I seem a little bit tired, that's why. Yeah. So, and if you look at a lot of these polyphenol intervention studies, you'll find a similar kind of dynamic where you might find a tiny improvement in some health outcome, but it's so small. Within the context of the study, again, it's the relative versus absolute risk type of thing. It's like with statistics, people who don't understand research, you know, any of the findings in these studies might seem like, oh shit, a freaking 5% relative risk reduction. But in the real world, that 5% relative risk is not going to have a huge impact. So anyway, lots and lots of these intervention trials that show a pretty similar picture. And also, a lot of times these researchers, they'll test a multitude of different things, and they'll have multiple failed results and sometimes negative results, and they'll just throw out the negative results or the results they don't want, and they'll keep whatever sticks, whatever difference they might see in whatever they've tested, they might keep that data set. It doesn't happen all the time, it depends on the study, but it does happen. So this like 3%, 3.5% improvement is kind of like a walk, it's like really nothing. It's like a speck in the map. It's like nothing. And luckily I have a lot of clients that are in the health field, one of which has a PhD in data analysis and statistics. And she actually does meta-analysis, and she's on the peer review board for certain journals. And I talked to her about this, and I showed her these studies, and I was talking to her about it today during our training session, or yesterday during our session, and she's like, yeah, it sounds like they're reaching the conclusions of these studies, you know, because in statistics, you know, from what she says, and she has a PhD in exactly this, she said that 3.5% improvement sounds like a statistical error to her. And she says generally you'd want to repeat those results over and over again in other studies to be sure that it's not just an error. Especially considering there were 2 other tests that showed no improvement. So yeah, I mean, overall, you know, and what's really annoying about this is all these gurus are just like, yeah, man, polyphenols, you've got to get them. Like, they're so magical, they're so powerful, you know, especially freaking Dr. Greger. And on Sigma Nutrition, they have a podcast episode dedicated to debunking these gurus. Some of them are okay. I think their review on Paul Soldino painted a really, like, biased picture towards him, as if he's like some kind of storyteller and doesn't ever provide research. And I'm not defending Paul Soldino. I think he definitely is off the deep end. But I'd love to hear somebody like really break down the studies that he talks about, especially on polyphenols, so that we can hear a deep dive as to why the studies and the science that he references and his mechanistic jargon might actually be incorrect. But no one does that. People just like talk about him as a quack and just disregard it and don't even say anything about his studies, which is not helpful. But they have one on Michael Greger, and I like it. It talks a lot about how so if you read Michael Greger's book, How Not to Die, it's basically just 500 pages of him talking about how freaking almonds can like prevent heart disease. And he referenced a trial where someone, where the one group was eating like 5 almonds and another one was eating like peanuts or something, and they showed like a decreased risk in cardiovascular risk factors eating the almonds or something. And it's just like page after page of him like reaching conclusions of studies on plant foods. Like, yeah, just 5 almonds a day and you can prevent heart disease for life. You know, and he had one on blueberries. Blueberries can prevent Alzheimer's disease. you know, and it'll reference a study like the one I mentioned earlier. You hear a lot of these gurus who are like that. Like, yeah, these polyphenols are super powerful. Lycopene can prevent prostate cancer. And it's like, there's a huge difference between having a study that shows a 3% relative risk reduction in prostate cancer from lycopene. That's nothing. That's nothing. Huge difference. 3% relative risk reduction in prostate cancer compared to this compound can prevent prostate cancer. Huge fucking difference. Good luck trying to prevent prostate cancer with a compound that shows a 3% relative risk reduction compared to placebo. Good freaking luck, okay? And that's the thing, your absolute risk of prostate cancer is pretty low. Especially if you live a healthy lifestyle. So it's like, okay. So yeah, you guys gotta understand, man. Like, so it's a lot more complicated understanding what claims are accurate or, you know, exaggerated, and what claims are legit. And it's, first of all, you got to keep an open mind and understand that pretty much any claim might possibly be wrong, even if it's coming from like someone with a PhD or a medical degree, someone who's like, you know, a mainstream general consensus evidence-based guru guy, like these people I'm talking about. Like, they talk as if they know the truth, and they're like, yeah, like these freaking vegan quacks or these carnivore quacks. And I just hate that word quack, because it's so arrogant, and it kind of makes you seem like you're an absolutist. Like, oh, I know what I'm talking about, and these people are wrong because they don't follow the truth that I follow. In science, that's not really in alignment. That's not the scientific method. And these same people, the Sigma Nutrition, I've heard them say people that disagree with them are anti-science, or people that question their studies or that don't believe in polyphenol and fiber research are anti-science. Like, we're talking tiny magnitude of effect in these intervention studies on these substances. And we know the isolated fiber supplements and isolated polyphenol supplements and isolated antioxidant supplements like beta-carotene don't really provide any benefit. In some cases might even increase risk of cancer in the case of antioxidant supplements. And you're saying we're anti-science for asking questions about science, which is the scientific method in a nutshell. You know, it's pretty bad. It's like just these, so annoying. So anyway, yeah, I don't know what to tell you people who don't understand these, you know, statistical significance and this and that. Maybe get good, get good, learn how to interpret science maybe. Not to say I'm an expert or a guru or some nonsense, but trying to ask these people about, you know, these things. Again, 86% of Americans are clinically obese. And we're relying on these studies on, you know, the general American population and correlating their diet with health outcomes. I think it's pretty safe to say, as long as you're not eating what 86% of clinically obese Americans are eating, you're gonna probably be, you know, 14% you're probably gonna be in the 14% of people that are not clinically obese. I'd say that's probably accurate. Anyway, chances are there's something else going on that is to account for these people who see a non-significant improvement in health outcomes from eating, you know, the highest fruit and vegetable intake in these studies. Even in these cohort studies, there's not a huge magnitude of effect for the people eating, you know, the most fruit and vegetables and the least red meat intake. But I guess that the effects shown in these studies are light years more significant than the effects we see in some of these polyphenol studies. So anyway, if you have an intervention study that shows a higher magnitude of effect, please send it to me. I'm not against polyphenols or plant foods. I'm drinking coffee with gynostemma, astragalus, and reishi, and a couple other things, plant-derived ingredients, as coffee. Oh, with got guayusa tea. So I'm drinking lots of polyphenols right now. But we're talking about scientific accuracy and the arrogance among these people. Another thing I'll say is freaking Stephen Gundry, man. I wasted 30 minutes of my life listening to Stephen Gundry go on and on about polyphenols and this overly nonchalant, seemingly antidepressant doped voice. And that's pretty condescending, I apologize. I actually like how calm he talks. Talks like a freaking psychotherapist, though, which is not a bad thing, it's a good thing, but he's not a psychotherapist. Anyway, man, that guy was going on and on about how the whole reason you want to eat polyphenols is because they make your gut microbiome healthy. And I'm like, bro, where in the hell is our evidence showing what a healthy gut microbiome is? Okay? Generally speaking, most legitimate gut health researchers, the first thing they'll tell you is, look, we don't actually have a strict definition of a healthy gut. We don't even know about that whole claim, higher diversity equals health. You know, I'm not going to name names, but there's quite a few doctors who don't eat any plant foods at all that have gotten uviome tests and shown that they're in the 99th percentile of gut diversity. So if diversity is the key, these people aren't eating plant foods or polyphenols, and they have enough diversity. They're not even eating fiber. We know there's a lot of things in our environment that influence the gut microbiota. Okay, and it's not just your food. But we don't have any data actually, suggesting there's one healthy gut microbiome. We have studies that correlate certain strains of bacteria with health outcomes, but we don't have a strict definition of a healthy gut microbiome. And then again, correlation does not equal causation. That's the main point in this entire thing. And even intervention trials don't really show significance in these things being studied. We don't have any causal evidence between the gut microbiome and improved health outcomes. So we don't even know if we directly influence the gut microbiome, independent of diet, if we can induce better health outcomes. So that whole freaking claim, we have studies on probiotic supplements that generally don't show a high magnitude of effect. So yeah, that whole Stephen Gundry, polyphenols, they make your gut microbiome healthy, that was just a waste. These are nebulous terms. First of all, health and healthy needs to be clearly defined. Healthy microbiome needs to be clearly defined. What do you mean? So yeah, that's all I'm going to say. Leave your question comments down below. Show me some intervention trials that show a high magnitude of effect. And talk till next time.